Hello everybody, welcome back to C&S Corvettes in Sarasota, Florida. It's your Corvette buddy Lyle, here with some more interesting information about Corvettes and things happening in the Corvette world. Today we're going to talk about something that, especially after Hurricane Ian blew through here, has become very, very important to know about, and that is salvage title, flood title cars. Now, before we get into that, please take a moment to like and subscribe and do all the things down here for me. Again, I really appreciate it. It does help the channel, helps me bring you more content and hopefully more in-depth and better content as we move forward. Salvage title and flood title cars. It is estimated that 358,000 cars were destroyed by Hurricane Ian alone. Two hurricanes a couple of years ago, back in 2017, Irma and another one I don't remember the name of, 656,000 cars estimated destroyed. Now, destroyed is an interesting word because that is insurance speak for we paid the value of those cars to the owner of those cars. That doesn't necessarily mean the car was crushed, ground up, buried, or burned, or taken apart and thrown away. What it means is that those cars were paid for and are never allowed to be put back on the road unless they are repaired. As with a salvage title, you can get a repaired certificate to make it streetable again, but the title will forever be marked salvage. There's also certificate of destruction cars, which can look perfect. I mean, not a mark on them, brand new. In fact, a lot of new cars that were sitting on lots down in Fort Myers and Punta Gorda ended up going straight to the insurance auction to be sold off for dismantlement with 3 miles on them. But CD cars can never be cars again. So what we're talking about today specifically are salvage rebuildable cars. Now let's first of all clarify the 5 things that you need to understand about salvage / flood cars. Thing number 1. Insurance is going to cost the same to buy on a salvage car that it does on a normal clean title car that's never had a history of damage on it, okay? Problem you're gonna have is if something bad ever happens to that car, it gets stolen, it gets wrapped around a tree, it gets killed in a hurricane, whatever it is, insurance is only going to pay 50% or less than the actual value of the car, because it's a salvage title car and has diminished value. Well, Lyle, that doesn't sound very fair. They're charging me fully for the insurance, but they're only paying half. That's correct. And that is exactly the way they play the game, and it's something you need to be aware of if you're going to own a salvage titled car. Number 2, salvage cars that have been repaired and put back on the road are not held to what you would call a stringent standard for the quality of those repairs, depending on what state it's done in, depending on who the inspector was, depending on a lot of different factors. Salvage repairs can sometimes be not so good. I've had cars come in here that somebody bought from out of state and they were a salvage rebuildable and they had been repaired, and when we put them up on the lift here, it was like, what parts are these? These aren't Corvette parts. What did they do? Why is there chicken wire here? Really, really odd stuff, okay? So, if you are, I always preach to you guys, if you're gonna buy a used Corvette, find somebody knowledgeable to do an inspection fully on the car so you know precisely what you are and are not getting for your money. This is quantuply? It's really, really, really true, especially with a salvage vehicle, okay? If you're gonna dip your toe in that pool, you really need to know what you're buying so that you can have peace of mind going forward and know that the car is safe and that it has been repaired correctly before you buy it. Number 3. The crummy thing about flood cars is they often look fantastic because they didn't get hit by a dump truck, they didn't fall off a cliff, they didn't roll down a hill, they weren't vandalized. They were probably sitting in someone's really nice climate-controlled garage, and then 2 feet of water came in and 2 feet of water went out. That car is now a salvage flood car and it's rebuildable. But when you look at the pictures of the car, you're going to look at it and go, that car looks like a brand new car. I don't see anything wrong with that. Aha! All the problems that flood car is going to show, it's going to show later. It's like a ticking time bomb. Now, freshwater flood cars are still potentially a very big problem. Saltwater or brackish water flood cars, I guarantee you, it is a hand grenade that somebody has pulled the pin on, handed it to you and said, okay, hold this forever. And the moment you let off the pressure, whenever it happens, 2 years, 5 years down the road, you still own that car, and all of the wires and connectors and all the things that got hit with salt water that have slowly been swelling up over time with corrosion, it's going to cause your car's electrical system to eat itself. And you'll have no indication of it until it happens. So be very careful about cars that have been flooded and how good they look, because the damage, it's almost like when they get flooded, it's like they get car cancer, okay? Things that never would have rusted before are going to rust. Things that never would have corroded before are going to corrode, and you won't necessarily be able to see it until it's far, far too late. Salvage flood car fact number 4. Now, I'm sure if you're looking at cars to buy, right now you're avoiding Florida because, man, you don't want to get stuck with one of those flood cars. But, I mean, you could buy one in North Dakota and be fine, right? Not necessarily true. We watch the salvage auctions that they have at Copart and IAA and some of these other big clearing houses for damaged cars that are being sold off by insurance companies. And I watch, there's a little ticker that goes by for each car that you're watching, and it shows where every bid is coming in from. Believe me when I tell you that right now, especially with the huge glut of damaged vehicles we have here in Florida right now, that you are seeing bids from all over the United States, all over the world, Uzbekistan, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, North Dakota, South Dakota, California, Kentucky, India, everywhere you can conceive of, people from all over the world are bidding on these cars. And then they are transporting them back to wherever they bought them. So that means that that salvage title car that you see for sale on the website in North Dakota that you assume couldn't have been a Florida saltwater flood car, not true. Very well could have been. And in fact, if the price is right, probably is. Again, the way to protect yourself from that is to make sure that you, anytime you're going to do a car, always do the Carfax. If you're going to buy a car, Carfax and inspection, and especially if it's a salvage car, make sure you know the Carfax so you know where it was located. If you know nothing else, that'll give you a better idea of what you're potentially looking at. Now, that moves us into number 5. Number 5 is Carfax is great. It's a very useful tool. However, let's say that John Smith has a 2015 Z06 sitting in his garage that just got flooded out, and he bought the car when he got some insurance money or got an inheritance and didn't need to take a loan on it. And he didn't really want to spend all that extra money on things like comprehensive coverage. So he got liability only insurance on his, $70,000 car because why not, right? And then Ian comes along and floods that car in his garage. Now, that car can be cleaned up very easily, especially if the water level was relatively low on the interior. It's a matter of pulling carpet, pressure washing, bleach wiping everything down, and putting it all back together, and you will never, ever, ever know that it was a flood car. Worse yet, because it didn't get turned into the insurance company, it's not going to have a salvage or flood title, and because it was never turned to the insurance company, it's not going to even show on Carfax that that car was 2 feet deep in water at one point in its life. That's the problem with relying strictly on Carfax and title paperwork to tell you what history a car has had. And this takes us right back to there is no replacement for an actual physical inspection by somebody who truly knows what they're doing, because cars that have been through that are going to have telltale signs that people like I or other people in the specialty business are going to look at and go, and we're going to be able to share that with you before you buy the car. Floods are just such a problem. They really are. When it comes, especially to collector cars, and especially into newer collector cars that are so heavily electronic, because once that problem is there, it's just tick-tocking away. And I caution everybody out there, if you're thinking about buying one of these cars, to be exceedingly careful, okay? And if you do buy one of those cars, make sure that you put some money away, and I don't mean like 20 bucks, in case that thing, the grenade goes off, the clock winds down, and all of a sudden you've got serious electrical problems that have to be handled to keep your car safe and viable. So that is my take on the 5 things that you need to be clear about on salvage and flood titled vehicles. If you've had experiences like this, especially if you've had bad experience and learned from them, please share them in the comments below. I'd really love to learn what you guys have been through with salvage or flood titled cars. I'm sure I'm going to get several people who say that those are the only cars they buy because they're great deals and they've never had a problem with them. Awesome, that is so cool for you. But my guess is I'm going to get quite a few heartbreaking stories too. So I'll do a follow-up video on some of the stories that people have shared with me in the comments. For now, I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you found this useful. I look forward to talking to you again soon.